All right, let's take a minute and give it up for podcasts. Am I right? No, but seriously, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's literally the easiest way to make podcasts, so let me explain. One, it's free. Two, it literally gives you all the tools you need in order to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, which is amazing. Also, the best part, in my opinion, is that it'll distribute your podcast for you. So you can hear it on like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, literally anywhere you listen to podcasts. Pretty amazing, and you literally have to do nothing. The other thing is you can make money from your podcast. There's no like minimum listenership required, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, seriously, if you're like into podcasts and thinking about making one, I would check it out because it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So yeah, go ahead, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. What are you waiting for?
Hello and welcome. We're Femme Noir. This show is all about women, specifically in film. We're going to review and analyze movies that are written by, directed by, or starring women, and we can't wait for you to join us. Tune in and listen wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hello and welcome back to Femme Noir. We are a podcast where we review and analyze films written by, directed by, or starring women and discuss their representation pertaining to the industry and what we see on screen. As usual, we will go through just a little bit of our structure before we kick things off. We're going to start off just talking about just things that happen within the media, film, television sphere, gossip, news, whatever. Things that we are excited to see that are coming out, things that we watched that we want to talk about just a little bit. And then we'll go into the review of the movie, and that will be just things that work for the movie, things that don't. We will then play our infamous game of FMF, where we choose who we are going to fuck, marry, or friend zone with the prominent men in the film. And then, of course, we will rate the film, 10 being the perfect film, 5 being wouldn't watch it again, but I did enjoy watching it at that time. And then 1 would be you just should have left it on the cutting room floor. After that, we will recommend movies that we think are similar, movies / sometimes TV, that we think you might enjoy if you enjoyed this movie. All right, so let's get started. I'm Serena.
And I'm Whitney.
And hello, Whitney.
Hello.
All right. So what I don't know. Do you have any movie news to talk about? Anything that you found online or anything?
No movie news recent. No recent movie news.
I know. I can't really think of anything either.
We can always
Let's
come
see.
back to
Oh,
it.
there was that one thing where people are they're kind of just like now making reels about the whole "Don't worry, darling" drama, I guess.
Gotcha. I definitely saw some headlines regarding whether Shia LaBeouf quit or if he was fired, and the director not wanting to recast, because recasting is very hard. And depending on the contracts that they have in place, can be very expensive. But I didn't get too into it. I didn't really read too much of them, mostly because it was while I was drinking my morning coffee. So I figured I'd go back to them later.
I heard that whole thing with Shia LaBeouf, and I was like, why is he being cast in movies? Did he I don't know, get his shit together? Because there were so many things.
Sorry, you cut out.
Oh, did he get his shit together? Because there were, so many things that came out about him and, his interactions with people not being great. Lots of sexual assault, harassment, things like that. And I know, they completely took his name, out of the marketing for that Pieces of a Woman movie that he was in.
Yeah.
And this was after Honey Boy came out. Honey Boy and I think Peanut Butter Falcon. Those 2 movies had come out, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm doing good," and then just kind of exploded again. So I'm like, wait, we're talking about him again? What? Weird. Why was he gonna be in this movie?
From what I heard, he was getting his life together. He was trying to do the work. I don't know if that included rehab or therapy, just that he was actively trying to get better. Um, but a lot of people are still upset because he hasn't apologized for anything he's done. And it's not just, like, oh, I'm going to get better and then suddenly you're better. Getting better and part of that whole process should include apologizing and making reparations for any of the harm that
Yeah.
you've done.
And like recognizing your fault in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I think recently I was reading something about James Franco, and I don't remember how it came out because there's like the whole thing with James Franco and like Seth Rogen where James Franco had sexual accusations against him from like I think college days, like when he was teaching college or something.
Yeah.
And then
I think he had some
like Seth
before
Rogen
that
was like,
too.
yeah, like very early in his career, like before he was big, really, or like even in the industry. And yeah, and then Seth Rogen was like, "Oh, I like hate that. That's disgusting. I'm not even like I'm renouncing my friendship with him." And then I didn't hear anything about it after that. And then I think it came up for some reason. I think I was watching BoJack with my brother, actually. There's an episode where they talk about like people that have been canceled and how long it takes for them to resurface. And so I was like, LOL, it's kind of like who was that? And then I was like, oh, it was James Franco. And so I looked it up and he had this like interview. He was like, no, yeah, I completely like, because he's being cast as a Fidel Castro in a movie.
Right.
And people were angry about that because they're like, he's white. But then like the daughter of Fidel Castro was like, but he looks just like him.
Oh.
And I was like, what?
I mean, I know of Castro, obviously, who doesn't. I don't think I've seen a lot of photos of him.
Me neither.
And for whether or not he looks like him or not, that's hard because, you want someone who is Cuban to play him. And then, that's what makeup and prosthetics are for, is to make them look more like the person they're playing.
Yeah.
But like, also, why do they I feel like they just automatically go for white actors instead of thinking about that.
Yeah. And like, I don't know.
Like, I understand his daughter is saying like, oh, they look similar, but
I know, it was so confusing.
How much of that is like being starstruck by, a famous Hollywood actor?
Yeah, it's definitely one of those lines where it's like, well, would this story be told if white people weren't in it? And should we be happy about it, or should we not be happy about it? Being marginalized and in a marginalized community is so difficult. Oh my goodness. Anyway, but back to James Franco and him being canceled for things versus what I recently found out was I had read an interview where he was talking about like, yeah, no, I remembered those allegations, and then at first I was kind of like, I don't quite remember them happening, like yada yada, and then he
doesn't remember being accused of sexual harassment.
No, like when the incident had happened, because it was years ago, and then they came out like recently.
Oh, so he doesn't remember the incident.
Yeah, he was like,
gotcha.
Yeah, and so he was like, but I'm going to be honest, like I went to therapy and I sat down because I was like, if I did hurt these people, like I want to know, like, or like I want to at least like acknowledge that and like do the work and whatever. And he was like, yeah, so I ended up like listening to the girl's stories and was like, no, that totally, like I do remember that happening. But from my perspective and like point of view, I just had no idea that it was like harmful, because it was one of those situations where it was like, they were old enough and he was a professor, I think. And like, but it was in like the time when like any male professor that's like slightly cute is just like expected to have students in his class that are going to have sex with him,
Yeah.
And he's like, everybody else in the school, everywhere else I've been, that's been like the norm. Like I didn't even, like it did not even like click that that was not like an okay thing to do because of how normalized it is just within men in that community. And he's like, it really is like crazy to think about that that's just so normal and has been for so long. And like, I'm so glad that they came out and said something because I never want to do that ever again. And I was like, that's really interesting because you hear these stories a lot of times. And like, I know for me, like, I think about it a lot of just like how many people do things like that and literally have no idea. And it's like, you almost can't blame them because like, yeah, everything that the media, like, this is why media representation and listening to people's stories is so important, is because like if you never did, they wouldn't know. Like they wouldn't know any better because it's just so normalized in everyday sphere.
There are definitely times when I would agree with that. But then I mean, like, let's just go kind of to almost the extreme. Like, if you're speeding, right,
Weinstein.
and you get pulled over. No, sorry. So maybe not the extreme, but like just like very off topic from that. Like if you're speeding and you get pulled over, right? Like you still get a ticket, like even if you didn't know you were speeding, like, or you didn't know the speed limit. Like you were speeding, you did something bad, you got in trouble. And like you, just because you're ignorant of whatever law there may be, like you can still get charged for whatever crime you committed.
Exactly.
And so, you know, ignorance isn't innocence. And
exactly.
With James Franco,
put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, but with James Franco and just not knowing, is in this day and age, with something like that specifically, I don't know if I would say he was ignorant. Like, I don't know if I could say, like, I fully believe that he didn't know what he was doing. I certainly don't think he saw it as bad as it was. But
yeah,
I feel like just with how accessible and how many people are coming out and talking about it, and just all the different ways that you can consume stories of women that were in a similar position, he should have known better.
Yeah, you would think, right? And like, what's even crazier is that like that was before, like, I just said like Weinstein and everything. Like, oh my gosh, like, ew. I'm sorry, that just makes me sick.
Yeah.
But it's just like, oh my goodness. Like, I think, yeah, like as long as, even if you like didn't realize it, because there's probably people that are like, oh yeah, I have sex with tons of people and like I don't remember every single person I had sex with. Like, I don't know, there's definitely those people out there, and it's like I don't remember every experience I've had with every single person that I've ever like hung out with. Like, I've definitely forgotten someone that I like had coffee with, and like one time because I met them at school or something. Like, that's just, I'm sorry if you were that person, but you know, like, it happens. And so it's like, it's so crazy to me that just like having sex and like accidentally sexually assaulting someone is like possible. And then it's like, yeah, to hear about it from like today's like day and age and like perspective, you think back and you're like, oh my God, no, that's exactly what I did. And I am so wrong for that. And it's just like, wow. Because it's like you watch movies, right? Like you'll watch a movie like nowadays that like came out like early 90s or like 2000s, and you're like, ooh, that's definitely like the power dynamics are disgusting. Or you're like, okay, he's definitely like, I watched The Notebook recently, and I was like, I literally hate this guy, he's so annoying. Because she was like, I'm not gonna go on a date with you. Man's literally was like, fine, I'll kill myself until you say yes. Like, bro, that's not okay. But apparently at the time the movie came out, that was romantic.
No, that's not romantic at all. To be fair, like, I've actually never liked The Notebook. I've always hated it.
I've never finished it.
My favorite part about The Notebook, like, literally is the ending when they both die. Spoiler alert. So
yeah, I've never finished it. I've watched the beginning, and I've watched that one clip where they're in the rain.
Yeah. The one that
And
everyone
I
falls in love
can't get
with.
through the movie for some reason. Like, I just can't.
I mean, every time I've tried watching that, I've just found it extremely boring. And it's not like any of these red flags or
It
the
is
time
really boring.
period, specific things
Like, it is
with
really
the
boring.
suicide.
And, like, I
Yeah.
watched Drive.
Sorry, what?
I like that I use Drive as my, like, this is a very pretty, very cool looking movie. Also, it's boring AF, but I still liked it.
Yeah.
Driving a Blade Runner 2049, I'm like, absolute chef's kiss. No thoughts, head empty, pretty things.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm probably gonna get a lot
Except
of
I do
flack for
love Blade
this.
Runner.
I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack for this, but that's the Lord of the Rings trilogy for me. It's all cinematography.
That's fair. That's fair. That's so funny. But yeah, it's just like things like that, and you're like, oh, the way, like, I'm so glad that like we're at this point where people are like okay with like coming out and saying like, hey, you did this to me and that's not cool. And then like thankfully there are some people who are like, no, I did that and that was fucked up and I'm so sorry and I will literally like do all of the work and pay and stuff in order to like not make it right, because I can't make it right, but like make it somewhat better. Obviously I'm a human being, so there could be stuff that I'm saying wrong, but just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a show actually on like ABC, no, Freeform, which is technically ABC, but Freeform and Hulu, called The Bold Type, and they have an episode where, and if you haven't seen the show is about it's like a women's magazine, and it centers around the lives of these three women that are in the magazine and in different like departments and stuff. And, you know, there's obviously like super fun side characters, but there's like this one dude that also works there, and he has a column about just being a dude that exists in like a women's magazine, and it's a very feminist magazine. And he writes this article about, or actually someone else writes an article about how they were taken advantage of, like sexually harassed, and then their story following that, and how like they've come to terms with it now, and like all of that stuff. And then he like reaches out to the person, is like, hey, like I remember I went to school with you, that like article is so like, you wrote it so well and it's so eye-opening, like I want to do an interview with you. And she's surprised because she's like, dude, I wrote that about you. And he's like, oh my god, that was about me. And he had to do that thing where he like sits down and he's like, oh my god, I did do that. And it's fucked up that I didn't know. Like, it's crazy that was like just a thing that I thought was like an acceptable thing to do. Like, I didn't even realize that this literally caused this other woman like years and years of emotional trauma. Wow. And then he had to like, and I think what he ends up doing is like writing another article about like, that was me. And as men, we need to take the responsibility for our past actions as well, because that's not okay. And I was like, that's so interesting, because you don't see stories like that, and they're not told very often, but like they should.
They actually they went a little bit. They didn't go too far into it, right? Because you know, as a TV show, this specific TV show, they want to try to keep things fairly positive while also going into like really hard topics. But they did show some of the blowback that he got from writing that article.
Yeah, they showed like all the hate and all the like, yeah.
And I think that was a really good thing too, because if shows only showed good things coming out from that, and when people did it in real life, they'd start getting all these bad things along with it, less people would do it because they'd feel cheated. They're like, oh, I didn't know this was going to happen. I thought it'd all be, you know, like sunshine and rainbows afterwards. Like, why should I have to apologize if it's just going to make me feel like shit afterwards? With, you know, them not realizing the apology and the actions and the reparations that they're doing aren't for themselves. They're for the people that they hurt.
Yeah. It's like, stop being selfish. Maybe just like do it. Yeah. It's super interesting. So I do remember recently reading a completely different article. I don't know why I'm just remembering all of these things that I've experienced. But there's this article I read recently where this girl, she writes for like a comedy publication, I think, and like often will get like like hate and trolls like in her DMs and in her Instagram comments and all that stuff because she's like a woman online. And she ends up like meeting one of the trolls that she like that literally said one of the worst things
That's
ever.
brave.
And she just like
That's really brave.
like they had, I think, emailed her or something, like just the worst thing that you can think of. I can't say it because it's gross and sad. And she basically like emails him back and is like, what on earth is going on with you to make you think that's okay to say to another person? And it starts this like whole conversation. She actually has like an actual interview with him on the show. And I was like, that's crazy. Of him just talking about like, yeah, I did it. And I did it out of definitely these things. And I still have no excuse for doing it. Like I literally am like so sorry and so remorseful about it. And like, especially now, like knowing you, like I would never say that to anyone I know. I would never say that at all. So I don't know why I said it on the
because
internet.
he got a reply back? Because like a lot of these, because a lot of people say hurtful things over the internet because of the whole anonymity factor of it.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if he was like actually remorseful like as soon as he sent it, or maybe like a day later when he had time to like think about it, or a week later when he had time to think about it.
I don't
or if
remember.
he was only
but it was
sorry
super
because
interesting.
he
If
got
I
the
can find
reply.
it, I'll like put it in the show notes or something. The link.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to watch it when this comes out.
Because well, now I'm really interested, and I definitely
or not watch it, listen to it. But yeah, I was like, that's crazy. Like, and she like had him on the show, and they're like, yeah, like we talk often now. Like we're friends now. Like, and I was like,
wow.
bro,
okay,
that's crazy. And he's like, yeah, like
so then something good did come
exist
of it.
in like real life, and I have like coworkers and like, you know, like friends and family, and I would like, I don't know why that completely like just happens. It's a very interesting phenomenon, the ability to be anonymous.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's all for movie news. I don't know if that's actually movie news or not, but I think that's all I've
within
got.
the sphere of media.
Media news, gossip, talk. Yeah, so, well, I guess before we move on, do you have anything that you're like excited about that is either coming out recently or that you watched?
Yeah. So I last weekend I actually got to go to a movie premiere in LA, and I walked the red carpet with my mom for yeah, it was super exciting.
So cute.
Definitely one of those bucket list item types of things. We both had a blast. And I do want to talk about this movie. I do want to promote it because it has so many good things about it. Just keep in mind it is a satire. So don't, because you're gonna hear the title. You're gonna hear the title, and you're immediately not gonna want to watch it because you'll think certain things about it. But let me tell you, it's not what you're thinking. The movie is called Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul, and it's about this mega church in Georgia, I believe, and it starts off with just giving you a very, very brief synopsis of this scandal that the pastor went through, which is against, sexual allegations. And because what else would a religious leader have against them? I mean, probably a few things,
lot of things,
but usually that's the most common. Yeah. And so the whole movie is about him and his wife. Sterling Brown is the pastor. Regina Hall is his wife. Trying to reopen their megachurch, and just the struggle to have to do that.
Oh my gosh.
And it's a satire, so it's taking, a fairly dark comedic look at the whole look of religion and megachurches, especially when they get to be as big as they were. But that's a really good movie. It focuses mostly on Regina Hall. Like, it's kind of about Sterling Brown as the pastor, but it's really about her and what she does to just fulfill his dreams. She's kind of like the epitome of behind every strong man, there's a stronger woman. Because she, everything that he wants to do, she makes sure it's possible. And I'm not going to spoil the end, but you should go see it because it's good. It does. There's one point when you think something bad's going to happen, and it doesn't. And I actually prefer it that way. So that's towards the end. So I definitely think you should all go see it.
Yeah, I watched the trailer
Also,
and it's so funny. Just even like the trailer by itself, I was dying.
Let me look up the director's last name, because two twins made it, and when they were talking about it, they said that if you want to see diverse movies, if you want to see women-made movies, if you want to see independent-made movies, then pay for them.
Yeah.
And I agree, because we always say that we want to see these movies, but we're not actually giving money to them. We're not making it so that it's possible for them to be made. We're just kind of like sitting out here in the void waiting for them to just pop up and become available. But if we start supporting these artists and creators, then I think we'll start seeing a lot more of those, and it'll become more of a standard for us.
Yeah, definitely support financially, support with like what's it called, like word of mouth promotion.
Word of mouth, yeah.
Promote things, yeah.
Shares, likes, stuff like that. The more accessible it is, the more you'll see it.
That's very true. All right, so let's get into it. Today, the movie we're talking about is Persuasion, and it is on Netflix. Whitney, you can go ahead and give a synopsis if you like.
Living with her snobby family on the brink of bankruptcy, Anne Elliot is an unconforming woman with modern sensibilities when Frederick Wentworth, the dashing one she once set away, crashes back into her life. Anne must choose between putting the past behind her or listening to her heart when it comes to second chances.
Cool. And it is directed by Carrie Cracknell.
Yes. Yeah, starring Dakota Johnson, Henry Golding, and Cosmo Jarvis.
Which is such a cool name.
It is. It really
like,
is.
What?
But it's not an adaptation of the movie of the same, or sorry, of the book of the same title, Persuasion, by Jane Austen. It's based on that novel. And there's something really interesting that a lot of people kind of get upset about, because you typically have three different modifiers when it comes to describing a movie that's related to a specific source material. You'll have this movie is based on the novel by Jane Austen. And what that means is when you add based on, that's the creator's ideas. So the directors, the screenwriters, the producers, it's their ideas that are based on the facts of the book. So the general storyline of the book. And they're not adding too many details. Like, they're not changing the ending. They're not throwing in a whole new cast of characters. It's just something that the creators kind of took like the skeleton of and created into something new, and something similar to the original. Then you have the adapted, which a lot of classic novels and classic stories get adapted to modern ways of storytelling. And that's the original work filmed again, created again, with very little changes. The last one that you'll see, usually most often, is inspired by.
Mm-hmm.
And that just takes the original story, the original narrative, and they've got creative licensed with it. So they can add more people, they can add more scenes, they could put in a whole new plot line for the background. As long as they kind of stick to the general story, they can do almost whatever they want. So I think when people watched this movie, they were expecting an adaptation and not something new, not something that was based off of the book.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, you do see, yeah. There is often a lot of confusion about the differences between those, and just like people seem to use them as if they're like interchangeable, but it is kind of important
And
when
they're
you're
not,
thinking about the
because
story that you're watching.
yeah, when like from the production side of things, when you're marketing stuff, when you're trying to sell a movie, you actually have very strict standards that have to be met in order to put any of those three modifiers onto the film to be marketed that way. So it's not just something that you can willy-nilly say like, oh, it was based off of this event. It was adapted from this book. Inspired by, you might have kind of like the best chance of saying it's inspired by this, but even that does have a set of rules essentially that you have to hit before you can say it was inspired by something.
Yeah, like I guess speaking of Jane Austen, the movie Fire Island is great and everyone should watch it. I love it. But it definitely essentially takes the plot of Pride and Prejudice, replaces the characters, and makes it like hella gay. And they kind of reference Jane Austen, but it's definitely not marketed as anything related to Jane Austen. So I feel like that probably is a good example of what you're talking about, of like, yeah, it can't be like inspired by or based on, or like it's definitely not an adaptation of like Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. It's just like the bare bones plot, and they make like funny references to it without exactly saying it. Like I think the guy writes a letter that is basically the same structure as like when Darcy's writing the letter about like everything that happened with Elizabeth and like his family before, and the guy that ends up marrying the sister. But the guy like in Fire Island like writes a letter, and they're like, yeah, what the fuck, dude, he wrote a letter. Like, yeah, no one writes letters, but that's what happened in Pride and Prejudice, so we're doing it. Like, like, and just like having the same like character like archetypes. And so yeah, it's probably, it's like that kind of, probably also like the 10 Things I Hate About You, the same character archetypes, same basic like plot, but different things, which is not what this movie is.
Yeah, this is definitely based on, it's the same same time period, same characters, same general story, just modernized. Yeah, there we go. for a younger audience.
Yeah.
For a new audience.
And I have to say, I actually really enjoyed like how they modernized it, because I never finished the book, but I was listening to it via audiobook when I had one of my concussions. And so I like remembered a lot of like just things from probably about the first half of the movie. I was like, oh yeah, that did happen in the book, or like, oh, I remember that, that's really fun how they like did that. And I was like, one of the main things that I loved was that they made her character like break the fourth wall.
Yeah,
like instead of it being like I'm writing this to you, blah blah blah, like they also had her interact with the audience, and I thought that was really fun, because it opened up a lot of room for like, I wanted like humorous beats and stuff.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
I never actually had to read the book for school or anything, and then I've never read it just for leisure. But in school, I do remember having to read like a couple passages from it, essentially. And I remember it not being like it was a fairly like it was a drama. It was
Yeah.
more of like a sad type of book.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like more struggles with it, like within the book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that's why I never really read it, was just because like, oh, like I don't think that would be something I
Yeah,
want
it
to read.
definitely reads
Um,
like drier than the movie for sure.
yeah. Well, and so for it to be changed in a way that more people can interact with it, more people can understand it, and not focus so much on just tradition of what was going on back then.
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes it more accessible for more people.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not everyone wants to watch period pieces. Like
Yeah.
period piece movies they're a very niche community. Pride and Prejudice, 2005 Pride and Prejudice, Bridgerton are like they're starting to open up and more people are starting to like them. But for the most part, not a lot of people watch period pieces. Not a lot of people are interested in them.
Yeah, unless it's
So
like a
for something
war
to
movie
be,
or something like set
yeah,
in the like maybe latest 60s is like how far people will go.
hmm,
But anything that isn't that, they're kind of just like, not for me.
exactly. So anything that can just kind of like get people more interested, I think, in classics alone, I think, is already off to a really good start.
I will say, speaking of classics, that this movie really made me want like a newer adaptation version of A Picture of Dorian Gray. Like I really want that. Like I want
Really?
it so bad. Because like what we got the Ben Barnes one like forever ago. Like I want one
Mm-hmm.
for now because I feel like it would be great.
Yeah, I agree. Because that's something that a lot of people already have some knowledge of, usually because of school.
Yeah.
If not because of school, then it's referenced in so many different things. I think just seeing a modern retelling of it would be really enjoyable just because people already have a basis
Oh yeah.
of what's going to be happening.
Especially set in like, oh my gosh, like just even just like retelling the story from the lens of like Gen Z would be fucking hilarious.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
dude, that would be so funny. I really want it to happen. Or like the unabridged version that like actually is gay, you know? Like it's just like,
Uh-huh.
come on, give it to me, please. I would love it. Yeah, I just wanted to say that because I love The Picture of Dorian Gray just as a book. It is one of the classics that I reread a lot, and like just stylistically and like dialogue wise, I feel like it would fit right in.
I want it now because, like, now that I'm thinking about it, a lot of the classics that get retold are like it's the third, fourth, fifth time that it's being retold. Like we continue to see the same classics being retold. I'd definitely be interested in seeing more classics retold in new ways. Because as much as I like the Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, I've already seen like three or four different
I know,
versions of
right?
those. Like, let me see something new.
I know, I want Picture of Dorian Gray.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next thing that we create is going to be something from the Bronte sisters.
I'm down. I'm very down. Like, I'm so down. When are we starting? Let's go.
Right now.
But I guess speaking about it being like timely, I do think that like not only the breaking of the fourth wall and like the comedy was
Mhm.
done so well, I thought, in this, because like a lot of times I feel like when I watch a period piece, the comedy comes from like understanding just like the culture of the period that it's in and like understanding the
Yeah.
dialogue and how people talked. Like definitely the 2005 version of Pride and Prejudice, like I will laugh because I'm like, oh, what a burn. But then I'm like, this literally doesn't make sense to anybody that doesn't know like what's going on like in the situation. Like it's very specific situational comedy. But I loved this one because like they would have jokes that were situational and definitely like relevant to the period and the time, but then they would visually like nudge it along with like another joke, either like her looking at the camera or like making like a face. And I think one of my favorite ones is when and they're like, oh, she's not coming with us to Bath. And she's like, what? She's like, oh, well, you have to go visit Mary. Mary wrote us a letter and she's like super ill. And you have to talk to her because you can barely tolerate her, which is more than the rest of us can. And they open the letter and it's just like a piece of paper with like giant handwriting in cursive. And she's like, I am so sick, you guys. And then it's like frowny face and then signed by Mary. And I was like, stop, that's so funny.
I honestly, one of my favorite lines was, he's a 10. I don't trust a 10.
Yeah. I was like, facts.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because like usually when they try to put in a lot of those modern types of like jokes and stuff, it's so cringy and it's done by like people who just don't really understand it, or they don't use that as their own sense of humor.
Yeah.
They're just kind of like mirroring and copying what they think should be done. But this was a lot more natural.
Yeah, it feels like a very stylistic choice from the director. Like I haven't seen anything else that they've made, but it does feel like it's a very specific type of like way to get across these jokes. Like the other part that is also very memorable is when she's talking about Wentworth and she's like, yeah, like I do have a box, like I've definitely kept all of the things from the past very much in front of me, which is a great line. And then she opens up the box, she's like, here's a playlist that he made, and it's like just a stack of sheet music. Which is so funny, but like it's totally relevant because like she plays music often at like parties, which they show later in the movie. So it's like, okay, it wasn't even just for joke's sake. It was like, no, these are songs that like he gave me to play because he liked me playing them, but I also still play them. So like it's not like he just gave me songs to listen to, like an actual playlist. You guys. I just thought it was so funny. There's so many good one-liners too.
There were a lot.
My favorite.
And it's also like stuff that I like almost would want to use like normally.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know why. I might just make this my Instagram bio, but the part where she's like, here lies Anne Elliot, who suffered cosmic loss, but really handled it quite well. I was like, stop, that's so funny. She's like, my tombstone's just gonna say that. And I was like, But really handled it. Really held it together quite impressively.
Yeah.
So
or in the beginning when she's like, I'm single and I'm thriving. I get to drink wine all day and take hot baths and lie face down in the bed. And like, yes!
What a mood. Literally so relatable. It's so funny. Like, even just small things where they're like, oh yeah, like we're gonna teach you how to court so you can get him. And she's like, I don't want him. And she's like, well, just sit next to him. Okay, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna sit next to him. Okay, I'm gonna sit next to him. And then you're gonna pretend you don't know a thing about anything. Okay. Tell him you don't know how to use utensils and ask him to show you how to hold them. And then they show her doing it
because that's believable.
And she goes, oh, okay, so just be myself. And she says, no, definitely don't do that. Not until like the second year of marriage.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, stop. That's so funny. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like, I didn't think I was going to like it that much. Because it like, I know I've mentioned the comedy a lot, but like, not only is it a funny film, but it also, like, the timing of everything is so well paced. Like,
It's spot
it
on.
makes you feel all of the things you're supposed to feel without like undercutting it. Like, it's not like a Marvel movie where it's like, oh, here's a very intense scene and then I'm gonna make a joke right after it. Like, it lets you sit in the
Yeah.
moments that are sad. It lets you sit in the moments that are like frightening or like intense,
Oh, that
while
cringy
also
dinner
having
scene that
movies.
wouldn't end.
Oh my god.
That cringy dinner scene when she's like, Charles wanted to propose to me first. And I'm sitting there going like, oh no,
Stop.
please let this end. Please, someone please jump in.
Yeah, that was oof. Or like even just like they had such great wide shots of like establishing scenes, like when they were just like walking and you're just like, okay, yeah, they're walking, like what else are they gonna do? Literally nothing. Like, I don't know, they're just like, that's pretty much all you did, right? You just walked and had conversations with people. That's it. And I was like, yeah, that's accurate. We're going on a walk, a very long walk. You don't want to come. You hate walking. You hate moving your legs. That was
So you
so
think
funny.
I just don't want to do something I don't like? Oh, she might have been that the younger sister
She's so funny.
might have been my favorite character.
Dude, so funny. Where are your children? How should I know?
I can't stay with my son because I'm an empath.
That was so funny. Like, literally everything
I
she said
feel
had
his
such
pain.
Gen Z, like, vibes, you know? Like that is
Yeah.
a TikTok itself. Like, I swear to God, I've seen that TikTok. The person that's like, yeah, sorry, I can't come into work today, because I don't feel like it. And they, like, sip their iced coffee, and I was like, dude, that's literally something we do on a daily basis, like, as a joke. And I was like, I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, their timing, their jokes, they all hit very, very well.
And, like, even that line that I quoted, the, like, here lies Anne, who suffered cosmic loss, like, I appreciated the line, and I thought that the line was great and, like, brilliant and, like, relatable, but at the same time, like, I felt exactly what she was feeling in that moment because that was heartbreaking. She's like, great, now we're Synexes. We're friends. And the way they shot that with just like the silence and like the melancholy music made it so heartbreaking. Like, you felt it, and the acting in that scene was absolutely amazing because it's hard to pull off something like that without it seeming like cringe or like funny, you know, like, or like a joke. And it was like actually sad while still being like, hey, we're gonna maintain this relationship, like we want to be in each other's lives, right? But then it was like, that like completely annihilates any hope of us having a romantic future.
Yeah.
And you felt that loss.
So I thought Dakota Johnson's acting was good. Wentworth's acting, Cosmo Jarvis, I hated his acting the whole movie. It felt like maybe it wasn't his acting, maybe it was just anytime he had dialogue. Yes, his face.
No,
it looked like his mouth was full of marshmallows the whole time.
No, this is gonna sound horrible, but like, he's the least attractive person in this movie.
No, it's true.
Like, I'm so sorry, but I actually did not like Wentworth or his character, like, at all. I was like, completely, like, I honestly, if I were to just rewrite it, I'd be like, yes, marry Henry Golding because he is so fun. And like,
yeah, she had more
beautiful.
chemistry with Henry Golding
with literally
than she
everyone
did
else.
With yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, the friends, what was it, like Harville or something?
The eye contact, the flirting.
Like, the friend that was just like, oh, hey, can you like talk to my other friend because he's like hella depressed and I can't like stand the poetry talk. Like, I love that guy. Like, I wish he was Wentworth.
Yeah.
Like, everyone else just seemed so much more interesting. Like, I get it, he was sad, but like, come on. He was like so boring.
So he did a really good job. He had like a fairly small role, but like stood out almost more than Wentworth did.
And like, I feel like he was kind of like, he ended up being perceived as what Wentworth probably was supposed to be perceived as, which is like the like puppy golden retriever like type personality. And I like,
Yeah.
because I can see like facially and like casting wise, like they're almost the same. I think the thing with Wentworth is that he's just like too sad puppy dog eyes to get past
It
it, you know?
was. It was. Yeah.
Like he didn't have enough of
I
the
know. I
happy
definitely
look
agree with you there.
to make the sadness be actually really sad.
Okay, to be fair though, did he have any happy scenes?
He should have. There's like the end, but like even in that scene, he's kind of just like he smiles with it. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Cuz I think the one time we actually see him briefly happy is when they're walking along the wall and Louisa jumps and he like catches her briefly and then she gets a concussion
That
afterwards.
literally, oh my god, that scene. I can't watch that scene. Like, stop.
I
Why
mean,
did you show her hitting the ground like that? Ugh,
yeah.
brutal.
Yeah. But I think like that was probably like the one time we might have seen him just like briefly happy because
Hmm.
even before when they're all on that long walk and he's with Louisa by the lake,
Mm.
um
Yeah, he's still like
he wasn't even
has a
happy.
chip on his
Yeah.
shoulder, and you're like, okay, we get it. But
Yeah.
like, is there
He was
anything
being
else to
snarky
you?
about yeah, he was being snarky the whole time.
Yeah, his character's kind of like, I don't want to say 1D because like he does have a little bit more. Maybe he's like 2D.
Yeah.
He's definitely not 3D
He,
though.
I Yeah, no, I'd probably say closer to 2D.
Yeah, 2D in the sense that like he definitely as a character had like his flaws and then like would recognize them and try to be better. Like definitely that dinner scene where she's like, "Well, maybe you should like let your wife actually make her own choices and decisions about
Oh,
how she
yeah.
feels instead of you trying to protect her from everything." And he's like, "You know what? You're right. I'm sorry that I insinuated that." I was
Yeah,
like, "Oh, I
that
like
was a
that."
good one.
Like he
Uh-huh.
does listen. That's nice. That was like the only quality, really.
Yeah, well they even like used that to talk him up before they had like officially met
Yeah,
him.
was that he
Um
listens.
yeah. Yeah.
That's a little funny to me. It was like, because normally you have the like, oh yeah, he's like super hot and he like can do all of these great things, and it literally was like
Mm.
he's hot, he's kind of smart when it comes to sailing, and he listens really well. Like no
Yes.
offense,
Yeah.
but that kind of sounds like when you're describing to someone like, oh yeah, no, you probably would like him, but I definitely don't. You know? You know, when you're like, okay, yeah, you like that guy, and that's
Uh-huh.
okay. There's some good qualities. I would not go for him though. You know, like that would be like, no, he's cute. Yeah, he's cute. He's like really good at his job. And he like listens really well.
Yeah. It's kind of like one of those things where people say they want it, but they don't actually like make it something that they specifically look for
Yeah.
type of thing. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah. That was funny. I just thought I was like, honestly, everything they're saying about this guy is kind of just like, yeah, we wouldn't date him, but like we think you guys would be a perfect match. I
Yeah.
was like, I mean, is that the guy you want as the I don't know. As like the main character?
So I know
I guess
they
he's not
put
the
that in
main.
there to like yeah, I know they put that in there to like throw shade kind of like on the men of that era. But also, like, I wonder if they were kind of like saying something about Anne because, like, saying, like, oh, you know, you're so outspoken, you just need a guy who will listen to you.
That's funny. Well, because like Henry Golding's character, like they had great banter, but even like the scene when
Yeah.
they're in the shop and she's like eating the sweet and she sees Wentworth for like that time. And he comes in and
Mhm.
he's like, yes, this gorgeous creature. And she's like, don't call me a creature. And he's like, this gorgeous. And she's like, woman? Woman. He's like, why can't I say creature? We'll talk about it later. Like, they are,
Yeah,
in fact, having the
yeah.
conversation. And, like, he is, in fact, listening because he is wanting to know, like, what the issue is. So and I was
Uh-huh.
like, that's so funny. Like, why couldn't you guys be more interesting?
Yeah. Well, and he was like, and Henry Golding's character was always very, up front. Like, he never hid what he was trying to do, and I think that helped with how, like, with his relationship with Anne, because, like, she would have seen right through him.
Yeah.
And like in the very, very beginning, when they first met and they kind of established who they were to each other, like, he had like one or two times when he was just kind of like, oh, can I get this past her? And she called him out on it right away. And he's like, all right, fine, let's just be truthful.
And
I'm here to prevent your dad from having a son.
And honestly, he acted the crap out of that role. Like, he did so good. And like, I haven't seen like every single one of his movies, you know, but I've seen like the big ones. Like, I watched Simple Favor, I watched Crazy Rich Asians, I watched like the freaking G.I. Joe movie. And like, I feel like in a lot of
He was in that one?
it's like Snake Eyes or something, I don't know. My dad wanted to see it because he thought it would be fun, and it was exactly that. Good action scenes. And like I feel like in all of those movies he kind of plays very similarly the same guy. Like, he's just like the very nice, pretty guy that like wants the best for everybody and like will do whatever it takes in order to make the best happen, kind of a thing. And it's like, that's awesome, but to be able to also play like the rich asshole is awesome too, like, because you completely believed it and everything, and it was really fun.
Yeah, I liked it. And I think it lends to her family, because like her family is all very they're not good people.
Dude, they suck.
Louisa mentions that. Yeah, and he just continues to be like not a good person. But out of her dad and her two sisters, he's almost the most redeemable.
Yeah. Like, at least he's like upfront about it.
Yeah. And that's all she wants, the truth.
Yeah. And I think her family being such a crappy part is great for the story, or being so crappy is great for the story too, because it does kind of help like redeem Anne in a little bit of like, yeah, my family didn't want me to marry you, and like they're pretty much all I have, so like,
yeah,
that's why I couldn't do it. Like, I know you'll probably hate me forever because I decided to listen to them. And she like learns from that later, but then him actually being able to interact with her family and just seeing how like shallow like her sisters are and her father is, like, really does show like him like, oh, okay, so there was like a lot more to this than just dumping me.
Yeah, so he judges her against her family too. Like, he believes her to be the same as them because he's met enough of them to know who they are. But then that scene by the lake when Louisa is just like, she's the most pure, kind-hearted person ever. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. That helped once again just say like, you know, how different she is from her family, and that opened his eyes up to
just how
falling in love with her.
Yeah, because it's like when you really sit her next to her sister, like, come on, like, bro. Yeah, I do like that Jane Austen likes to write about women that are perceived wrongly because of their families.
Yeah, that is a theme for her.
It's very fun. I like it.
Yeah.
The other thing about this movie that I think is worth mentioning too is that it is like with the colorblind casting, and I feel like it's a really good example, because I know we talked about it in another episode that we just did. I can't remember which one, but we talked a little bit about like stories of fiction and fantasy, and how like oftentimes those are the stories that people, specifically white people, will get mad at when they cast a person of color instead of a white person. But I think this one's a good example of how you can have a fictional world that has its struggles with like class and sexism, because that's what the story is about, without like also including racism. Like, the story has no racism, or like it doesn't talk about like necessarily any person of color like experiences. I mean, why would it? It's written by a white person. But like the stuff it does talk about is like women's struggles and class struggles, and that exists outside of race. And so I like this is such a great example of being able to take a fictional story that does talk about timely things but still not
Yeah.
include things like, and let it be modern and like respectable without it being like re-triggering, you know? And I just thought that was like interesting
Right.
because I think what it was we were talking about was the Game of
Yeah.
Thrones thing, but it's like even like the Little Mermaid, people were mad that
It's
like
a mythical creature.
she
Like,
got cast.
come on, guys.
Halle got cast, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we don't like that she's black now. Like this is, it's got what like Swedish or like." We're like, okay, first of all, it's a mermaid and it's a fish. Second of all, does it matter that the original like story, fairy tale, whatever came from like a white country? Because I
Yeah.
don't think it does. Not in the story or what it's telling. Like that's not the point. It should be completely fine. You know?
So one of the things that I want to see more of when they do open casting are South Asian and Middle Eastern actors. Because you'll see a lot of Black and Asian actors mixed in, which is good because you're definitely hitting you're getting the representation. But if you hopefully you start noticing that anytime they have an Indian character, a Middle Eastern character, or actor playing someone, they're usually like some weird like nerd or a comedic joke character that you're not really supposed to pay attention to or like all that much. So if we're
Yeah. Because what? We've got like 3 that I can think of off the top of my head that have been like in roles outside that like aren't determined by like race. I can literally only think of 3. And that's the lead, well, I guess the lead actress and her sister in Bridgerton, the 2nd season. Camille Nanjiani. And I would say that's probably specifically like only what Star Wars and that movie he made with Issa Rae.
I didn't see it.
Lovebirds. And then this guy's kind of new on the scene, but he is kind of up and coming. He was in literally cannot remember his real name. He was in How I Met Your Father.
Oh, interesting.
The, like,
okay, I haven't seen
barkeeper.
that one either.
And he recently made, or he was recently in a movie, I think that like just came out also, as like the love interest, Suraj Sharma.
Gotcha. The one role that I see a lot of Middle Eastern people in specifically is gas station employee.
Dude, yeah. What the heck?
Usually if there's a gas station, a Middle Eastern character is playing the employee. And to be fair, like in real life, that's kind of true. But usually if there is if they're in the film, that's the role they're playing. Or some type of terrorist.
Yeah. Yeah, and literally the 3 people, 4 maybe, that I just named, like that's within the last like 2 years. Which sucks.
Yeah, there's not a lot. There's some, but there's not a lot. So I think when we talk about diverse casting, we need to talk about everybody.
And we definitely just
casting,
gave so many examples of people. Because what? That girl was in the one that was the lead in Bridgerton season 2. She was in Sex Ed. That show on Netflix.
You just keep listing movies and shows that I don't watch.
You should watch all of these. I watch a lot. I'm like an encyclopedia of freaking television.
I know I should.
Movies.
I know I should. But part of it is just time or something else pulls my attention.
That's fine. Like I don't know how I get through the amount of content that I watch. Like I literally have no idea.
I'm getting better for sure, especially now that I figured out the best way to like watch stuff while working. But But yeah, I'm still pretty behind on
Sex Ed
everything.
is an amazing show. Definitely recommend that.
It's been on my list. It's one of the ones that have been on my list, but there's just shorter things that I can finish
Yeah.
before then that I tend to
Yeah,
watch.
that's fair. Oh yeah, but I was just, like, it's crazy because like we've just listed off what 4 people, and like they're amazing
Yeah.
at their jobs. So like yes, give them more roles, but I feel like even them just having
Give them
skyrocketed
more starring
like they
roles.
did is like proof that we can have more. Like give us
Yeah,
more.
and people want to see
Yeah.
them. I think Mindy Kaling has she said a lot about
Her
this
shows are
too.
great. And her
Yeah.
characters, oh my goodness, they're amazing. And she
Mhm.
does normally star at least one person in the show that is
Oh gosh.
what? Like of the
Mhm.
same
There was
race, religion
there
as
was
her.
yeah, there was a TV show or a movie. Oh, she was in it, and basically she was the
Oh,
diversity
oh yeah.
hire.
Late night.
You know, is
I
that
think
what
it
it
is.
is?
Because it's got that one
Because
chick.
I made a point to want to watch that, and then just stuff kept happening that I never got to. So hold on,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
it's
make a
called
note
Late Night. Dude,
to.
that movie's so good. Like I actually enjoyed
Okay.
it a lot.
Um, but yeah, that's something that I'm gonna have to watch real
Hmm.
soon because that was something that I did want to go like out of my way
The
to
way I just
watch.
called
Um,
Emma Thompson that chick. That one chick. LOL. That's funny. But yeah, no, that one's really good. And that kind of brings up like a second thing that I wanted to talk about too, is
mhm.
that like oftentimes we'll have characters and like the whole argument is that like, oh well, if you have certain like people in these roles, then you have to also put like it has to be historically accurate, and they're like, okay, well, if they
Oh.
were actually going to be in this time period, then like either they would be portrayed by white people or like they would be like a slave or like discriminated against
Mhm.
ridiculously to like a very high and ridiculous standard. um
I think a lot of times when they want to cast a black actor as a slave or a servant, they're not doing it all the time for historical accuracy or any type of accuracy because when they make it a point to be like historically accurate, they're going to do it for a shock
yeah,
factor because something bad is about to
yeah,
happen to them.
like it is almost always to show the bad thing that's about to happen.
Mhm.
It's almost always for like the
Yeah.
trauma porn, and it's ridiculous. And then like things
Mhm.
will happen like in Game of Thrones, the one girl that was the like handmaiden or servant or whatever to Daenerys. She was
Yes.
black, and
Yeah.
she was also from a literal enslaved peoples. Like their entire like race was enslaved,
Mhm.
and they were like, oh, we would like to not see only black people portrayed as slaves. And they're like, okay, but like it has to be, it's for the realism. And we're like, it's literally a fantasy world, my guy. That's crazy. But then you'll get the like arguments as well as like, okay, well, if it was the other way around, then it would be considered racist. Like if you cast white people as like black people, it's racist, which we were just talking about earlier with like what's his
Yeah.
face, the Fidel Castro casting,
Oh. Mhm.
which
Mhm.
again is like, this is a story of like an actual person's experience. This isn't like fiction. Like that there's a
Yeah.
difference between the two. And
If
you know, like
mhm.
we're all kind of subject to social conditioning, and it does see the way that like we view stories. And like there's a play, it's called The Shipment, and if you're interested in just diving into this issue, it's definitely one that I would suggest. But basically it's a play with an all black cast, and the first part of the play they show just like all of the stereotypes and tropes that Black people generally get cast as, and it's super crude and uncomfortable for the audience, and like that's the point. But it makes the second part of the play even more like impactful, because the second part of the play is just, it's all the same actors, and they play, it's like a birthday party, and it's a one room setting, and you know, like secrets are spilled, friendships are tested, you know, the typical thing that you would see in like a regular, you know, low budget play. But like as the characters are resolving their issues, and like, you know, they're like, okay, well, let's all like be together, let's play a game. And they end up playing like a game where they have to like give an impression of someone, and one of the impressions they have to give is like an impression of like an African guy. And then one of the characters speaks up and is like, hey, I don't know if this feels right. All of us are white. Shouldn't there be like a Black person in the room if we're going to do this? To which the shock value of the audience is, oh, the Black people are playing white people. But because we've been so socially conditioned to see, like, to not assume that Black people can play other races just like white people have always done, we automatically assume and impose certain things onto them that white people don't. Which proves the point that there is a difference between people in fiction being recast, fake people that literally don't exist, being recast as different like identities and races, and having their like experiences go along with that, than it is when you're putting a white person in someone else's experience. Like, that they literally have never experienced and like will never experience or understand. Like it's a very big difference. So like, screw historically accurate. Oh my god.
Yeah. Going off that, if you want to see a fantasy world where race doesn't, it's not that it doesn't matter, but where if you want to see Black people who aren't essentially slaves or kind of like thought badly of, there's the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks, and I'm not going to get too into it because it's a big series and there's a lot to talk about. But the magic system is based off of light, and if you have darker skin, then it's actually better for you to use the magic. And they handle race in that very well, which is, it doesn't matter. And for when it does matter, they address it very well. So just if people are upset that their fantasy worlds aren't historically accurate because there's no way it can be done differently, I recommend reading that and just kind of seeing how he handles it.
If people are mad that their fantasy worlds can't be different or created in a different way, then they just have the worst imagination possible. It's like, hello, my guy. If I were asking you to create a fantasy world, I would just not, because apparently it's gonna suck.
The fantasy world's a little too lifelike.
Where's
for
the
me.
creativity? Where's the spice? Literally. Like, come on. But yeah, that was definitely something I thought of when watching this, because I was like, oh, it's a like Persuasion, Jane Austen, like those are very well known like characters, archetypes, like regardless of where you are in like literary standing, but like to have characters
you've at least heard of
that
it,
are like diverse and able to play the characters as they are is just like, it's just proof that like it can work and it can be great and wonderful and enjoyable, you know? Give it to us.
I agree.
We want more.
Definitely, for sure. And even if it means we're the ones who have to make it.
Yeah, like yep. Let's do it. Femme Noir Production Company?
I'm down.
Question mark? Exclamation mark.
2023?
Hey. Somebody fund us. Let's do it. Also, okay, this is like very off topic to what we were just talking about. I mean, it does have to do with the movie, but like, you've seen The Holiday, right?
Yeah.
Did this
The
movie
one
not
movie
feel like
that
The
I like Jack
Holiday
Black
to
in.
you? Like, I feel like it had the same, like, tone, I guess.
I could get behind that, just with
And the
the
soundtrack.
kind of like the falling in love and then the oh no. Okay, we were going different paths with that. I was gonna say with kind of like the misconnections almost and just the falling in love aspect, the romance of it.
Yeah. And, like, well, I don't know what it is, but Kate Winslet's character in that felt very much like Anne.
I could see that. Okay, I could see that. I could get behind that.
But then also the soundtrack is just super, like, nostalgic and melancholy. And I was just like, oh my god. Like I want this movie's soundtrack. I already have the holiday soundtrack, and, like, I would just play those over and over again. It's the
Do you
fall
really?
anthem. It's just so nice. Like, I just
Interesting.
love it. Like, I don't know why. My brain literally is just, like, latched on. And I was like, I'm never letting go. But, like, okay, so there's, like, the lines that she has in this movie that are, like, here lies Anne, and, you know, like, who suffered cosmic love, but handled it quite impressively. You've got the like, no one tells you when you're young that life keeps going whether you approve of its progression or not, which sounds very like in cadence at least to, like, what's a holiday quote? We are the cursed of the loved ones, we are the unloved ones, the walking wounded, the handicapped without the vantage of a great parking space. Like, the writing, or, like, at least the lines themselves are so similar.
You are selling me more on the similarities.
Or, like, when she goes,
yeah,
like,
I've
willingly loved that man for over 3 miserable years, the absolute worst years of my life, the worst Christmas, the worst birthdays, New Year's Eves brought in by tears and Valium. These years that I have been in love have been the darkest days of my life. Like, tell me these movies. Those quotes are
They're
very similar. And, like, even the way that they're, like, said are so, like, the cadence is the same. I think I saw a TikTok the other day that was like, oh my gosh, it was making fun of I'm actually just gonna play it. LOL. Let's hope we don't get taken down for this. But it was talking about how there's, like, the structure of of the line when Florence Pugh's character in Little Women is saying her line, and it's, like, the same exact structure as like the economic proposition in The Social Network, and she, like, says it and it's super funny. I'm gonna play it. Hang on.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I'm not a poet, I'm just a woman, and as a woman there's no way for me to make my own money, not enough to earn a living or to support my family, and if I had my own money, which I don't, that money would belong to my husband. So don't sit there and tell me that marriage isn't an economic proposition, because it is. Yeah, I killed Fran. But I guess I didn't.
This is actually Knives Out.
So what do you have on me? Nothing but attempted murder. Like an arson for the building and a few other charges. But with a good lawyer, which I have, I'll be out in no time, and then you'll see just how much hell I can wreak on your life, you vicious little bitch. It may not be for you, but it most certainly is for me. Well, I'm not a poet, I'm just a woman. And as a woman, there's no way for me to make my own money. Not enough to earn a living. Or to support my family. And if I had my own money, which I don't, that money would belong to my husband. So don't sit there and tell me that marriage isn't an economic proposition, because it is.
Like, I just thought it was so funny.
So that's actually that gave me a little bit of Fleabag vibes.
Bro, for real. Yeah. She definitely played that. That last one was supposed to be Andrew Garfield when he does the, like, slamming on the table part in The Social Network. And then the first part was a different Social Network character. I forget. I think it's one of Jesse Eisenberg's character. And then the middle one was Chris Evans' character in Knives Out. And I was like, that's so interesting. And I don't know why, but, like, after, like, while I was watching this movie, all I could think about was The Holiday. And then I was like, dude, these movies sound exactly the same. They have, like, the very same, like, speaking structure. And I was like, that's
Yeah.
so interesting because I don't hear enough about that. And now I'm obsessed and I want to know all of them. That TikTok was by Macy Metier, by the way.
Now I want to just watch both films back to back.
I know. I was like, I just want to watch The Holiday. I think the first time I watched Persuasion, I had watched it with a friend, and we just watched all of the other Jane Austen, like, based on movies. Yeah.
This Persuasion?
We watched Emma
Okay.
with Anya Taylor-Joy, and yeah, and I was like, that's kind of great that, like, every single one of these has just such a very specific aesthetic, and, like, they all match no matter who they're directed by.
I mean,
yeah, but I mean,
they're
they all
all
like
from the
look
same
the
author, so
this one, the only difference was like it did feel more modern, and like I said, I think a lot of the stylistic choices were to thank for that. But yeah, I think we're done with our like discussion of the movie. That last part was kind of just for fun, but
yeah, so
you know, it's a podcast. Whatever happens, happens.
Is it time for the
which
FMF?
I wanted to ask you. I was like, can we? There's what, 4 prominent men, not including the dad.
Oh, not including the dad. So there's Mr. Elliot, Henry Golding. There's the Wentworth, obviously, Cosmo Jarvis. The younger sister's husband,
just kidding. There's 5.
Charles Musgrove.
I'm thinking of his friends.
Oh, who are you
Harville
thinking
and the
of?
guy that ends up marrying Louisa.
Oh, the 2 captains. I forgot about them.
Because I was like, could we just do it with like Harville, Henry Golding, and the guy that marries Louisa? The 3 hottest people in the film.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay. I'm okay
Yeah,
with not doing Wentworth. No, like I said, it looked like his mouth was full of marshmallows.
He just like
the
looked
whole time.
dirty to me. Like he had dirt, just like, and I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I don't know if they were trying to make him scruffy because he's a ship captain, so he's always at sea, and it was something to do with like that. I didn't appreciate the scruffy look on him.
But yeah, he just looked so dirty the whole time, and I was just like I don't know. I just wanted someone to like wipe his face, like it, like you know how they'll have like, those like like greasers and stuff, and they like work on like motorcycles, and they always have grease on their face. That's what he looked like the whole time, and I was like, why? There's no reason. But whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, I don't know what was up with his
like I get having the scruffy like thing going, which totally worked for Harville, so I don't know why it didn't work for him, but I don't know. It was weird.
I agree. So remind me, is Harville
yeah, is that
was
his actual
the blonde
character's
one,
name?
Right?
It was something that
know.
ended with like an Arville sound.
I don't think he's on my little cast list right here. They put the debt collector on the cast list.
That was very funny. That scene when he just like he's like, "Daddy's broke, princess," and he takes the whole thing of pastries, but then he takes the one out of her hand. So rude.
Yeah. Why don't we, instead of doing him, since we don't know the other captain's
Oh yeah, it was Harville.
either.
Okay, I'm correct. It was Harville and Benwick. Mm-hmm.
Benwick?
The one that marries Louisa.
With a B? Uh-huh.
Or we could do Louisa's brother, Musgrove. Musgrove?
I kind of like him better.
Musgrove, Harville, and Mr. Elliot. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, the one time we actually have like a lot of hot people to choose from.
It's hard.
Like, they're all decent. like I liked all of their characters.
I'm gonna have to let you go first on this one.
I'd probably marry Musgrove, just because like he seems very marryable. We've seen how he is in Marriage already, so like probably yes. Oh dang, that's kind of hard. Who would I rather put in the friend zone? I'd probably screw both Harville and Mr. Elliot, but after screwing them, I would friend zone Mr. Elliot. Like, I would still, like, we'd be friends, like, but like legit friends. If I were like friend zoning anyone, I guess technically it would be Harville, because I just like would probably screw him and like not hang out with him again, unfortunately. Like, I don't think we'd vibe as well.
Okay.
He's like too nice. He's too nice. You know? He's too nice. Like, I can't just like judge other people. He was like too nice to me. To me. But like, I would have so much fun with Mr. Elliot. Just like as a legitimate friend.
I disagree with you. Yeah. I think Elliot would be a good acquaintance. I don't know if I could be like friends with him. I feel like
he'd be like my go-to plus one.
Crazy.
He'd be my go-to
or he'd
plus
be like
one
a little
if my
too
husband's
judgy.
not available.
He was very like you saw it in the sweet shop and at the opera, where he was just very like on top of her when Wentworth was there, and he had to be very controlling. Like, he was just so jealous, and I feel like that would
Maybe
transition
he
into his
like
friendships too.
He liked the other girl,
Yeah,
which was very confusing to me, but also funny. I think he just
Clay.
didn't like what's his face, Wentworth, because he did that thing in the beginning. Because when they first meet, he's like, "Can I help you?"
He stood up.
And he's like, "I'm sorry, do you have a claim on this woman?" And he even apologizes for it later. He's like, "Sorry, that wasn't my place." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, it was not your place." He can come as close to me as he wants. He can stand in my way all day. Continue.
I think if I was to choose, so I agree with Musgrove as Mary, because he just seems like a very patient husband, and any time I'd have like some crazy idea
and like
that
he's
I'd
also
do,
funny.
he'd support it.
Like, he had some pretty good one-liners and digs.
Yeah. So I like I said, I agree with marrying him. I would friend zone Harville.
Like,
Because he likes
legitimate
books.
friend.
I like books. I feel like we could. Yeah. Yeah, I think we could be like actual friends. And then I'd fuck Henry Golding and we'd have a fun time.
On.
It'd be great. And then we'd both move on.
That's not even the friend zone, is it? That's just a one-night stand. I guess friend zone in the term that men think the friend zone is.
Wait, it will. Oh.
LOL.
Yeah.
But maybe that is what they think the friend zone is. I don't know. They think that, well, no, because they're mad that you won't fuck them. That's funny.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's so stupid that the friend zone exists. like quote unquote friend zone is not how we always put men in the friend zone. We're like, yeah, no, he'd be a great friend. We're like legitimate about it. We're like, yes, no, he'd be such a great friend. I want to be friends with him. And they're just like, oh, she won't fuck me.
When men get upset about the whole friend zone thing, it's just like, you came to me wanting to be my friend. You were my friend. and now you're upset that because I don't want to sleep with you, I'm friend zoning you. Like, no, you're no longer my friend. No longer speaking to you. Because you just lied to me
literally,
for
it's
the
like, I'm
entire amount of
actually
time
just,
that we knew
like,
each
the
other.
friend zone does not exist. Like, that is purely your own, like, prison that you've put yourself in, because that was no, like, my intentions have been upfront from the beginning, which was friendship. Don't think I said it any other way.
Yes.
That's what we thought this was to begin with. Now all of a sudden, there's a name and I'm being accused? Excuse me. What? Like, I'm treating you like I would any other normal person would when we're friends. Just because a girl is nice to
I don't
you
go sleeping with
doesn't
all my friends.
mean that sex has to be involved. Like, my guy, what primitive world is this? Anyway, that's my favorite part of Fuck, Marry, Friendzone. And I just think it's funny because every time we're like, no, yeah, we can't even literally friendzone a dude because, like, we're like, no, like, he'd actually be a great friend. I would actually be friends with this guy. But any, like, dude in real life,
and I'd
it's
actually
like,
be friends with Harville.
would be, like, so pissed. That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what would you rate the film?
I gave it a 9. I give it a 9 out of 10. I really liked it. I would definitely watch it again, and next time I'd watch it, I'd have a glass of wine, so that I could drink with Dakota Johnson.
Yeah.
I had a blast. It was funny. I laughed. The cinematography was great. I definitely recommend it, and I would rewatch. So I gave it a 9 out of 10.
Sorry, I'm thinking. No, yeah, that's fair. I can't think I would give it any lower. Like, there's, like, I can think of maybe like one or two things that would have made it better, but like they're all just like opinion things. But like as a movie, it's solid. It is a solid movie.
Was this made by Netflix? Or is it just on Netflix?
I think it was like a Netflix.
Because like
So I don't think it like released in
because
theaters.
like I would probably buy this movie if I could.
Yeah, like I enjoyed it. It's definitely going on a list of like comfort movies, I guess, maybe. Like, it was super fun, super relatable. Loved it. Have already watched it more than once and have recommended it to people. So yeah, I'd give it a 9 out of 10.
Nice.
The only reason I can't give it a 10 is because, like, I don't like Wentworth. Can we recast?
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly. I think, aside from like
just
some
spice 'em
opinion
up a bit?
and like personal preference changes, I think Wentworth is a full point off of a perfect score.
It's just kind of boring. Like, in my head, the end is she marries Golding's character. She marries Mr. Elliot.
Yeah.
She accepts his offer. They have fun for the rest of their lives. Her and Wentworth are still friends. And yeah, in my head, that's my ideal ending. They just like are like, yeah, no, the Louisa and Bennick are getting married, and then she's like, oh, that's great. And I guess you are right. My love didn't last as long as yours, and she accepts that and is like, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have said that. That was rude. And he's like, okay.
Because women don't have to be pining after men for all of eternity.
He's like, all right, I accept that. I am still in love with you. And she goes, okay. And he goes, but I am just really glad that you're happy. And they're both happy. The end. He goes off and becomes a great admiral.
Okay.
Cut to black.
I could get behind that. I'm not upset at this ending. I do like this ending. But I could get behind that too.
Like I get the ending. It makes sense for the story. Like, literally the whole time we're like talking about what's getting in between the two of them and like that having to be reconciled. Like, I get it, but like, you know, for like fantasy's sake, that would be my ending.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. It's still a pretty high score, 9 out
Alright,
of 10.
So,
I just realized,
yeah, 9 out of 10.
I guess I wouldn't consider this to be a rom-com necessarily. I don't know. Vic probably would, and she probably would not
I
like
think
it as much, which is funny because she always gives them like rom-com super low scores, and so I'm just like so surprised we have a 9 out of 10 for a rom-com. But I'm like, oh, that actually makes sense because you and I actually both enjoy watching rom-coms too.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
That's funny.
I'm a big rom-com girly.
I will just review all rom-coms with you.
Oh, please. The more that I can watch, the happier I'll be.
I will watch them all, even if they're bad, and I'll be like, wow, this is really bad.
My guilty pleasure. So if it's not rom-coms, like if I can't watch a rom-com, my guilty pleasure is bad superhero movies. So if you ever want to do those too,
Oh my god. Am I
down.
sensing a mini series?
maybe. First movie, Catwoman.
Oh my gosh. Dude, okay. No, I think we should definitely do that. That sounds really fun. Maybe that will be our first series on Patreon. You guys can tune into that when that comes out. Okay, so do you have any recommendations?
I've got a couple. The first movie everyone's gonna think of right off the bat, Pride and Prejudice,
Joe Wright.
2005, Keira Knightley.
Dude, that movie's such a bop.
Yeah,
I love that movie.
It is, and I mean, I don't think I need to explain why. That's just such a great movie. The scene with the hand, or like the shot with the hand after he helps her up on the carriage. My favorite.
I think we should talk about
But yeah,
that
so that's
movie.
the first
Just
one
do
that
a-
everyone's.
Maybe we can do a Jane Austen series.
Dude, that
too.
is that movie. It's tied for my favorite movie with my next recommendation. Which is 10
Yes.
Things I Hate About You.
The way I quote that movie on
that
like a daily
one-
basis.
Dude, it has so many quotable lines. So many quotable lines. Cultural touchstone right
Literally.
there. But I recommend that movie because it's also retelling. It's a based off of movie, and it's based off of The Taming of the Shrew by
Mhm.
William Shakespeare. So it's a modern retelling of a classic. That's just fun. It's a comedy. It's a rom-com that I think a lot of people would just very much enjoy. And then another one, it's the same thing. It's a based off of retelling of Emma. And I don't know how many people know this, but it's Clueless. The movie that I'm recommending is
Love
Clueless
Clueless.
because it's based off of Emma.
Yeah, it's so good. Also
Mhm.
directed by a woman. We could also review that one. Ooh, great
Yeah,
rec.
that's another one we can do.
I definitely, obviously, would recommend The Holiday, considering I literally could not stop thinking about it. What's funny is I was also going to recommend Emma with Anna Taylor-Joy in it, just because, like, stylistically, I think the humor plays out similarly. I didn't like it as
Mhm.
much, though. I don't really know why.
You didn't like
Yeah.
Emma as much?
But, like, if you liked the style of this, you'd
I
probably
didn't
like
watch
that
it,
one.
but is it just as funny?
It is. I don't know why I didn't like that much. I think it was more just, like, the characters.
Okay. That's fair.
But Bill Nye, British guy, not the science guy, is in it, and he's absolutely amazing
Oh.
too. And I think that one actually has
He's a
like,
really good
the
actor.
greatest line out of all of Jane Austen's like stories in it. So that's the one that has the line where it's like,
What's that?
if I loved you any less, then maybe I could talk about it. And then she faints.
That is a good line.
And is like, no,
Oh,
no, no, no.
God.
Or she doesn't faint. She just is like super disappointed because she's like, well, this complicates things because I thought you were in love with my best friend, and my best friend is definitely in love with you, but I'm also in love with you. And so now, classic Jane Austen, we have a lot of missed connections that we've got to reconnect. Super fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those are all good recommendations.
Feel like I have another one, but I like can't think of it, you know? It's fine. All right. Well, I think now we are at the end of this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. Stay tuned for more that we have coming out soon. And you know, you can always DM us and tell us other things that you would want for us to do on Patreon if you guys were to become our patrons, you know? Just an idea.
Yeah, let us know what you want. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you want to hear more of.
We can very well make that happen. We can definitely make that happen. So yeah, we'll see you or we'll talk with you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.